Welcome to Spiritual Conversations, and today's topic is Deja Vu. Have you experienced a Deja Vu? What is Deja Vu? Anything about Deja Vu? Because it's a little bit of the mystical, perhaps. And I thought that I came across the phrase Deja Vu recently, and I thought, well, that fits quite neatly in spiritual conversations, because it's not a concept that can really be defined, in my knowledge, by scientific research or understanding. And my perception is that anything that doesn't fall within science is outside of it, and therefore in the realm of mystical, and we have to try to understand it in a different way, perhaps. Our regular research measures aren't really cutting it for these sorts of topics, and that's why I love to host spiritual conversations, because I love to delve into, outside of science, because in my experience, we do have other dimensions going on that aren't able to be explained by science. So to begin with, in kicking off today's topic about Deja Vu, I'm quite interested to know if you have experienced Deja Vu yourself, and to hear a little bit about that experience. And maybe because it's the first time in introducing this lab, if you introduce yourself a little bit as well, and where you're from and what you do. So maybe, Cherie, if we go to you, because we're both here down under, and we are hosting. So our guest, you're our guest. I'd love you to go first. Have you experienced?
Well, thank you. I'm a spiritual, intuitive, and EFT healer, coach, and mentor. I'm helping people to really integrate their head, hearts, and minds, their head and their heart, really, to fully integrate and experience personal and professional success in their life. It's, been obviously an evolving journey for me to get to this place. And it's just a wonderful, I just feel really blessed. I feel so blessed when spirit, well, I shouldn't say when it started to speak to me, when I started to listen. And when I started to actually listen to spirit, to messages, to intuition, to just a whole other realm of knowing and experience outside of what I tried to make fit in my head. It's just been it's just amazing. So I've been blessed to be able to find to be able to come in these sort of arenas where we can speak to each other and communicate and have conversations with people who are like-minded, like-hearted, like-souled, and just have such a different experience than we had before live streaming became so readily available. So I've been using it and embracing it in a way I never thought I would. And I'm just loving it. So I appreciate that, I'm here. And Deja Vu. I think I remember the first time I remember saying, like, oh my gosh, I feel like I've been here before, done this before. And it felt so real. Like it I don't even know how, it was just felt so real. And I remember saying to somebody, oh, that's Deja Vu. And it was, almost like it meant nothing. Do you know what I mean? It was so like placé when I heard that. But I never forgot that. I never forgot that. And I was, much younger when I heard that first. And I guess it's more recently that I have just a deeper understanding of what that really is. So I'm excited to be here with both of you and have you get your perspectives as well.
Wonderful. Oh, thank you. Vin, how about you? Have you experienced Deja Vu?
Yep. I am Vin Brown from Vintuitive Training and Promotion. I work on harmonizing and unifying your individual social media platforms so that they work together as one powerful springboard for your business. That's who I am, and you can find out more from vintuitive.com. I have experienced deja vu, but not for a long time. And as I understand it, deja vu generally does affect younger people more than older people, or perhaps as you become older, you. I'm not sure why, but you don't have them as often. I'd like to know if both of you agree with that. Do you find that the deja vu experiences have diminished as you get older?
Interesting. I have not really taken stock take of when they've occurred and what ages I've been. But I know I have experienced deja vu on many occasions, and I'll swear I'll have been in that room. And well, the moment I walk in the room, I think I've actually been here before when I haven't even known that place before. And I've often wondered, did I dream about it? And I've tried to analyze, how could I possibly have known about this? And I've never really come up with anything. I just kind of thought, well, I saw it in my dreams, or it's so familiar for some reason. I never really took note of how old I was. And I don't really know if it has decreased as I've got older. What about you, Cherie?
You know, I actually had never thought about it, Vin, and Margaret. I wouldn't say it's true on my behalf. I think I still have moments of experiencing it, and I'm much older than when it first started happening. But perhaps I don't know. Maybe as we become more in tune with like our inspirited and our intuitive and spiritual side, that it's maybe less momentous for us. You know, it almost becomes more normal than when we're younger and we really don't understand what's going on.
Can I take a break here and say that we should really talk about what it is? You know, as I always say, can we define the thing that we're discussing? Because people may not know what deja vu is. And often I think it does get confused with premonitions, when really deja vu, as I understand it, is something that that you have a feeling of already experiencing it at the same moment as it's occurring. It's not like a day before, or even an hour before, or even 5 minutes before. It's like right at the very moment that it's happening, you get this feeling of, oh, but the bottle fell over and he said that and she coughed at that. This is all like all of these insignificant things are very, very significant because I feel that I've experienced them before. But it's as I say, it's in real time, so much so that you can never say, oh, and now he's going to say blah, 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 or now this is going to happen, or now the door is going to open and so-and-so is going to come in. There's never, ever that moment where you get enough ahead of it to say this is what's going to happen. So it's quite frustrating. I really enjoy the experience. Other people I've spoke to said that they hate it and it's very frustrating. And I can understand why it might be frustrating if you're constantly thinking, what's going to happen next? I can never really get there. So that's how I understand it. If anyone has any differing ideas on the concept, please jump in.
Yeah, well, you know, it does come from the French déjà vu, already seen. And so my thought about déjà vu is that it's a sense that you have been in this place before. But
it's not quite like clairvoyancy, is it?
No, because clairvoyancy is seeing into the future. I don't believe that I ever see into the future ahead of it coming. It's like when I'm there, I get a sense that I've actually been in this place before, like already seen. I've already positioned. This is very, very familiar. I know this place.
Yes. It's also, I don't know, a feeling of experience. So it isn't just that you see it. I don't know, for me anyway, it's not like I just see something. It's like I almost get disoriented to the point that I almost feel like I'm in another place in time. So it's really an experiential, it's a feeling as well as like a seeing, and it's this knowing, like this deep sense of knowing.
Yes.
I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting.
And that's a very different experience from getting a vision or seeing something or connecting to something from the past, or, you know, I mean, than being in the moment of, oh my God, I've been here and done this before. This isn't new, or this isn't, like, it's almost like then simultaneous, like, right? It's, you've been there before and I'm here now.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I'm wondering then if, like, we've all experienced this, and I did happen to go and check up the stats before this blab, because I was curious. I thought, does everybody experience déjà vu? Is it common? And of course, it's very hard to get stats on such a phenomenon.
There was a survey in 2004.
Yeah, go on, Vin. Yeah, you might have found more than me. Go ahead.
Yeah, the survey from 2004 found that approximately 2/3 of the population have had an experience of déjà vu.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Well, I found that it was between 30% and 100%. I thought, oh, okay. That was, yeah.
Well, that study I mentioned was from Current Directions in Psychological Science.
Right. Okay. So that's interesting. So it is fairly common. It's fairly common. If it's fairly common, how can we explain it?
Well, there have been scientific explanations of it. Well, there have been a few different approaches to it, and I actually put in the links there. Quite an unusual one from Dr. Michikaku, who is, I think he's a well-respected scientist. If I'm not confusing him with someone else, I think that's the guy. And he puts it forward that maybe it's the product of a parallel universe, which sounds even sort of more out there than just some kind of psychic ability to remember. I don't know what the other explanation. What is the other explanation? What's the sort of spiritual explanation of it? Do you know?
Well, the best I have to offer actually comes from Wayne Dyer's book. I don't know if you know this one.
Oh, I haven't read that yet.
Memory. It's his most recent book, the one that was published when he was in Australia. I was at his talk the day it was published, and so it was hot off the press. And it's actually his last publication before he passed away. And so it's an account from children across the world. Many of them are American, but there are some Australian occurrences, reports here. And their parents, who he interviewed, along with a co-author, Dee Garnes, they interviewed parents about children's stories about a different world, if you like. And so I just tagged some to read, and it's interesting that Vin made reference to maybe does it happen when we're younger or not. So this chapter is Invisible Friends and Spiritual Visitations, and it's from Angela Barber in Texas. And she says, my 2-year-old granddaughter was spending the night with me. After sleeping a while, she suddenly sat up, straight up in bed, and stared hard at something. I asked her what she was looking at, and she said, Ronnie, he's over there. My 28-year-old son, Ron, had passed away when my granddaughter was 6 months old. Ronnie was his childhood nickname, yet it was never used past his elementary school years. So she could never have known, the 6-month-old could never have known the name Ronnie. And this is the 2-year-old granddaughter now. So that's one account of spiritual visitations. But there was another one, because they are in sections, and this section is memories of family reincarnations. And I don't know if this sheds some light onto it, because these are inexplicable, in a scientific sense as well. And do they come into the same realm as Deja Vu? So this one is, Victoria, Australia. I missed that when I tagged it. I was just looking for the stories. I met a physician a little while ago, I'll call her Mary, who told me a very interesting story. Mary's firstborn child died before she was 1. Mary used to sing a lullaby that was especially for her baby. And when she died suddenly, Mary never ever sang that song again. After 7 years, Mary had another little girl who began to sing that lullaby at the age of 4.
Mm.
Mary froze and asked her daughter, I'm getting goosebumps. Mary froze and asked her daughter how she knew the song. The child's response was, "Mummy, you used to sing it to me." Mary became a true believer after that and understood that you pick your mother and your father before you are born. So that's quite a bizarre one, a lullaby that she'd never used past her deceased firstborn child. And the second child at age 4 begins to sing the lullaby. Maybe just one more, because I find them from a different section. This one's memories of past lives, and these are all from children. This is from Heather Lee Simpson in Indianapolis. When my youngest was little, she would cry and scream whenever she heard sirens. Finally, one day I asked her why she got so upset. She told me that one time a siren came and took her mummy, and her mummy never came back. I told her that I was her mum and I was fine. No, the mummy before you. Also, she is obsessed with the Titanic. One day I showed her the movie and she started crying hysterically and told me that she was on that ship and died in the water. And it's interesting how she said the mummy before you, because there's at least half a dozen, as I've looked to get some brief excerpts for the blab today. There are at least half a dozen that I came across that referred to the mummy before you. I thought, wow. So these are all from the mouths of babes and experienced through their adult parents in the retelling of the story. And Wayne Dyer got really, really interested in this because he experienced it through his own daughter. I can't remember, he had 8 children, has 8 children. And he became quite fascinated with some of the things that one or more of them would come out with, and thought, how could they possibly know that?
Mm.
Yeah.
So do you think that's more indicative of déjà vu or past life memory and recall? Or are they, interconnected?
How interesting, yeah. Because they are given different sections in the book. And I didn't read from one of the sections, so I'll just read the sections. And are they all connected or are they separate?
Wow. Okay.
Chapter one is called Memories from Heaven. And there are stories there. They're beautiful. They talk about before they came, God was doing this, or they were playing with their little brother, or something about God's land. and now it's time for me to go to my other world. You know, there are stories like that. So Memories from Heaven is chapter 1. Chapter 2 is Memories of Past Lives, exactly what you said, Sheree.
Oh, okay.
And chapter 3 is Memories of Choosing Parents. And chapter 4 is Memories of Family Reincarnations and Role Reversals. There are many stories about, Mummy, remember when you used to be the kid and I was the mummy? I've read that in a few accounts.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I'm just, it's amazing. Chapter 5 is Memories of Spiritual Connections to Our Source. So there's lots of reference to the spirit world, direct connections, and the God. Chapter 6 is Mystical and Precognitive Wisdom. Chapter 7, which I read from, Invisible Friends and Spiritual Visitations. And chapter 8 is Angel Stories. So, yeah, are they linked? Is it the same, or are they quite discrete phenomena?
None of those really sounded like deja vu to me. They sounded like past lives or those sorts of things. How do you feel that that's related to deja vu?
I see that it's related in a sense that there's phenomena going on that we can't account for in a tangible, perhaps scientific way. It seems to be a realm of the spiritual, because if we haven't been there before, how do we get that sense that we have been? And to me, that is maybe like a past life. Otherwise, how is all this so familiar to me?
Yeah, but if it was a past life, they wouldn't be the same people, the same room, the same implements. Like, for example, often in the radio, there'll be so many aspects to the situation. Like, it's not just a place, it's the actual experience, isn't it? So that, as I said before, you know, someone will kick a bottle and someone will open a door and someone will scratch their chin like this. And then, you know, all these minor, such insignificant little details, but they're all combined together in a moment that makes you realize, hang on, what? Hey, that and that and that and that and all of those bits together. Yeah, I know this has happened before. I've experienced this. And I wondered if it's like a dream, you know, like a premonition dream that you have, but one that you don't recall until you're actually experiencing it. You think, oh, hang on a minute. This is a dream that I've had that I've forgotten about, that I've not ever recollected until now. That might be an explanation. That, to me, seems like the most plausible. But even that's quite out there.
You know, after sitting here and just listening to some of those experiences and asking the question myself, I'm starting to wonder if deja vu just isn't a re-experiencing of a prior experience, another life, another time and place. And that's why it feels so familiar to us. You know, so maybe it isn't that it's the same, we're in two places at the same time, but it's like, I've been here and done this before. You know, maybe it's more of a soul recognition as well as more just a, you know, person place recognition.
Yeah.
Yeah, but again, how can you have been there before if this is at the current time? You know, this time doesn't happen before in the past. This is now. So, you know, I find it difficult to say that this is from a prior existence or a prior time when all of the things in the experience are now. Like the radio is broadcasting today's news, for example. That couldn't have happened 20 years ago or 10 or 5 or even last week. So I struggle. I find that very difficult to accept that one. But science does actually have explanations about this. And, you know, I mean, it's just another crack at explaining it. But, you know, I was in the Wikipedia page, which, you know, is a very general starting point for any topic and not to be sort of regarded as the ultimate resource, but it's often a good starting point. And it talked about, I'm just skimming through it now trying to find the point, but it talked about somewhere where you would be lying in bed and you get that jump, that, I don't know if you've ever experienced it. I used to experience a lot in my 20s, but I haven't experienced it for a long time, where it would happen every night. I'd try and fall asleep and it would be that jump that wakes me up, and it was almost as if I was going out of my body or something, and that sort of jerk made me wake up, and it really got in the way of my getting to sleep. And maybe we could talk about this in next week's blab, but which is about sleep. But this article was referring to that as a type of neurological fault in the brain, and it may be in a similar situation like that your brain is sort of faltering. So a part of it's sort of going forward and a part of it's staying behind, and then it sort of catches up, and it's that creates this feeling of having experienced this before, because your brain is sort of pulling away from itself and in a sense lagging behind and catching up, and then it's then that this experience is created. It seems like a really dry, boring scientific explanation. It may not be as fascinating as the others, but it's another one.
Okay, so
I'm trying to get to Elaine. Each time I do Elaine, it comes up for Cherie.
yeah, I was saying, I wonder why you keep asking.
I don't know what's going on there. I can't get it right. Yeah.
Walter has a good question. Has anyone here ever heard their name being called, but there's nobody there?
No.
Yes.
Okay.
As I reflect, yes. I have heard my name called, and paid attention and looked up, or even got out of my seat and gone there, and yeah, good one. I didn't know if it was a trick question to see who's not the normal one here. I have had that experience. And look, I work with a lot of, in the area of grief and loss. I didn't introduce myself at all, but I'm Marg Lambert, a psychologist, author and speaker, and in my psychology practice I work with a lot that a lot of people who experience grief and trauma, and many are people who have lost their children. So I think it's SIDS International. You would have SIDS and Kids, I think, in the other countries. Mm-hmm. And so I work, I'm the psychologist for SIDS and Kids here in this area. And there are many reports. People will often tell me that they have heard from their deceased loved one. They have had a message. They have really heard their name. There might be other sensory perceptions that they have about them. They might smell them, but definitely hearing their name called. And if it's a child, it might be mummy. And they hear, whether it's, is that people trying to console themselves that they hear their loved one? Because I often get asked this, it's just people trying to feel better. Or is it really what is going on for them? So I can't dispute these people's experiences, and I can't deny that their experiences are real and that they are happening, and they are as real as if they were, as they describe, as though they were right there in the room calling their name.
I think some people will experience things differently. So someone may literally hear their name, where somebody else might sense a presence or actually see, like literally see the person in some capacity, because we all intuit differently. And I think that's what's happening. And I don't know. I'll share with you a very personal experience. My brother passed away. He was 28, and I was 30. And my children were quite young. My oldest was, I think, maybe 8 at the time, and my youngest was 5, well, four actually. And then there was a 6-year-old. So there's 3 of them. And I was very okay. So I think does trauma or loss maybe play into like a sense of unfinished business, or are some of us just more in tune to? I don't know, but I often sense my brother's presence. I wasn't like a clear visual. I didn't see him, but I knew, like I knew and sensed that he was there for many, many years. But the thing that was interesting to me is that my daughter, when she was maybe 19 years old, called me one night, and she said, "Mom, Uncle Christopher came to me. He said that he wants you to stop blaming yourself and to stop worrying, and he's okay." And I mean, this is long before I think I truly opened up and understood like the awarenesses on a spiritual or intuitive capacity that we all have. Now, my youngest son, so this was like a few years later. I mean, I never talked about this with any of the kids, on a very separate experience. And he called me and said, "Mom," no, he was texting me actually. And this was actually just a couple of years ago. And he's like in his, now he's 27, but so this was a couple of years ago. He sent me a text and he goes, "Mom, I'm sitting here and Uncle Chris is here. And he's talking to me and he wants you to stop feeling so sad and missing him." And I was just, so how do you explain that? I mean, it's not like on a regular basis, I was talking to either one of my kids at this point after how many years that he'd passed, or, that he was a presence or part of our daily existence. But 2 of my 3 children called me in the middle of the night having a conversation that was very real to them. And myself in several occasions having this sense of his presence and having conversation with him. So how do you explain that? Does it need explanation?
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind having a crack at explaining it. But
sure.
I apologize in advance for taking a skeptical perspective, but I think it's good to do that, to have a bit of balance, to tease out some ideas and concepts.
Yeah.
But I've experienced a similar sort of thing to what people describe when their loved one dies. Mm-hmm. When my partner went away for a long time, a couple of weeks, the first few days, I was because we'd been sitting on the couch after dinner, spending the time together watching TV or eating together or spending time living in each other's pockets, basically. The moment that we separated and she went away for a holiday, I was in the same mode of, well, I feel like she's here. Where is she? She's not here. I could have sworn I felt her, oh, she's always sitting there. Why am I having the feeling that she's there when she's not? And it's like a habit. So I wonder if that has something to do with people who have, after decades of being married and living together for so many years, that when their loved one dies, they feel that they're still there because there is that habit. It's always been the case. So maybe that explains that feeling of, they're here with me. I know that doesn't explain messages passed on from those people. But that feeling of someone being in the room, I often think about that, where I had that seemed like a real experience, like the person was there, but I knew, obviously she wasn't. She'd just gone on holiday. She wasn't dead or anything. She was just on holiday. But, I have another thought that's only just come to me in this discussion. When people with amputees, and we had an amputee on our last blab on Wednesday, But when sometimes amputees talk about, and he actually talked about it, phantom pain in this leg. It feels like he's got pain coming from a leg that doesn't exist. And so, our minds, the brain of an amputee is still feeling as though the limb is there. They're getting pain from a limb that doesn't exist. How could that possibly happen? And so, this seems quite similar in a way to one of your offspring. It's like losing a limb when they die. You've lost a part of you. They come from your body. They're a part of you. They're your genes. So it's almost like losing a limb. And I wonder if this same type of phenomena that's happening with phantom limbs and phantom pains from the phantom limbs could also be put forward to explain perhaps the loss of a loved one and feeling their presence and getting messages from them.
I think there's maybe some absolutely essence of that. I mean, I work with a lot of people, and I think there's a place where maybe we really don't disconnect or let go of the person who's left our life. And I know that definitely I was very connected. I mean, I've come to understand that my brother was very much a soul mate in other lifetimes. So I could get where from myself, my keen sense of missing him and the connection we had. But how do you explain, my children, especially as adults, not even like at the time of his passing or when the grief was the strongest or any of that. But I think maybe it was just more, were they intuitively so connected to me that, I just, and I think, and it's not the only example I can give you. I just thought that one was interesting because there was 3 of us involved. And I don't know, because in my practice, I'm constantly, healing relationships from people who have gone, people who come through to communicate. So I just think that the level and the depth of what's out there and our ability to connect is just far greater than just what we can comprehend and explain and understand in a limited conscious mind.
We do like to simplify things in order to understand them, don't we?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because when so many people pass, and this is all before I actually had a sense of what was actually happening or, have an awareness on all of it. But I remember people would pass, and for some reason, I would sense them. I would sense their energy. I would see them in certain kind of capacities and arenas. But then I realized, one of my grandmothers, when she passed, I never could feel her or sense her, and that used to really bother me. And I'm like, how come all these other people show up? Why won't you come talk to me? Where are you? What's going on? So, it's not even like you can do it at will. It's like I think the spirit of the person who has passed needs to want to come in and communicate with you, or be present with you. And then so perhaps when people are sensing that, it's because the soul that's on the other side sees their pain, their grief, and the depth of that, and comes in to try and console them. I don't know. What do you think about that? This is really weird stuff we're talking about. I know.
That reminds me of the story of Anita Moorjanis, Dying to Be Me, that beautiful book that she's written. And I heard her speak in Brisbane when she was out here with Wayne Dyer. And she had a near-death experience and experienced the other realm that she refers to. And she said that her father and her good friend that had passed were telling her that it's not your time. She had a sense that she wanted to stay there because she was without pain, and she'd had a very painful experience of last stages of cancer. And she really wanted to be pain-free, of course, and she was experiencing a pain-free sense in the other realm, and that's where she wanted to stay. And apparently, she said it seemed that if she continued to stay there, there would be no returning. So it was like, you know, if you stay here, you know, if you go beyond here, there is no return. So her father, she got the message from her father. However she got it, you know, it obviously wasn't words, but she just said, I knew my father was saying, it's not your time. There's more work for you. And her best friend, who had died of cancer as well, were encouraging her to go back. And so she went back into her body. So, yeah, from the other side, I suppose from the other side, the other realm, or was she still in her body anyway? She got that message from the other realm. And, yeah, so I do think, you know, that to me her story kind of substantiates that there are messages that do get passed, you know, through to us. And if this connects with Deja Vu, I have no idea. You know, why would I know? It's almost, what does it matter how this message is transmitted? That gives me a sense I've been here before. I don't really get wound up about trying to explain it. And I suppose that's the position that different people take in needing to know and needing to understand. And our education system is full of the need to know and the need to understand. You know, we stuff kids' heads full of facts and figures and information. I don't have that sense that I need to know. I am quite happy sitting with the unknown and allowing the mystery to still be mystery. And I suppose that's the difference with individual perceptions about this, that if science can't prove it, well, then it doesn't exist. I don't have that sense at all. Yeah, and yet my husband is more that way inclined. That, yeah, we need to have some scientific proof of this, or it's not really, it's just one of those things.
Yeah, I tend to think, I'm going to say something sexist here, but I think I think women are generally more accepting of what you're talking about, accepting things without needing to know all the nitty-gritty and the explanation and the nuts and bolts, whereas guys are just generally like that. I think they're technically minded and want to know, you know, how something works. You know, so, and I'm a little bit like that, and I find that it's quite limiting. And, you know, when you want to know, when you want to sort of drill it down and say, you know, is there a scientific explanation for this? If there isn't, it sort of weakens the whole thing, and you think, oh no, I can't really put my whole invest, you know, myself in that if there's no backing to it. So, you know, it limits you. But we know science is always in a process of discovery. So there's tons of stuff that science hasn't even got to yet. So, you know, are we going to wait for that to happen before we accept it? And do we have to? You know, as you say, Margaret, everyone's different and has different approaches to how they work with the world.
I have a question for both of you, and anyone else out there. Actually, I guess bringing it back to Deja Vu. So, have you ever either like been watching a television show or a movie or reading a book, and this feels so much more like a Deja Vu experience to me, and I'm still not trying to piece it all together. So have you ever like read something or watched something and there's such a keen sense of either connection, awareness, or knowing or feeling, like, you know, that like you've been there, you've experienced it, or it feels so familiar some way? And would that be you know, more akin to like a deja vu experience, or would you say that's past life?
I've not had it with reading. Have you, Margaret?
You know?
Yeah, I have, and a movie, yeah, like,
okay,
and I suppose it's no different because they're simply a setting in life anyway. And so it's not surprising. I don't find it surprising that it would appear, you know, through what we read, what we see, where we position ourselves. That, to me, that doesn't really matter. It's possible in all of those contexts. Yeah, I would put it on this in the same framework as Deja Vu. Elaine's with us and she's not with us. Yeah.
So do you think that, again, that all of these experiences that we're talking about and that we're sharing is part of our, like, maybe our spiritual evolution, our spiritual maybe awakening or awareness to connecting to a part of our soul or ourselves that is outside the realm of this experience, but nevertheless, it's very real. And the more that we're open to that and the more that we connect to that, the more that we'll experience things that are more outside the realm of our everyday in this world experience.
Yeah, and that's I've heard that suggestion quite a bit, that we are evolving in a spiritual way. To me, that makes sense. I think we are here to evolve. And, you know, perhaps there's more physical evolution of our bodies to occur, who knows? But why would it not also be possible? You know, why would we not be evolving on all levels? And spiritual evolution, us evolving in a more spiritual way, makes absolute sense to me.
Yeah, why would it happen to our physical body and not the rest of us?
Yeah. So, Elaine, are you with us?
I'm with us. I mean, I've been catching the conversation kind of weave in a number of different directions. But, you know, it's generally about our experience of connection and awareness and, like, time getting kind of funny. I have many times in my life had momentary flashes where in a real place, you know, it might have been travel, it might have been something ordinary. I just had a feeling I've experienced this moment or this quality of feeling before. And then it kind of goes on. I don't dwell on it, but, you know, I have experienced that from time to time. And sometimes it's been with conversations with people. Like, did I dream that I was having this conversation with you before? And like now we're having it because it just seems so familiar. You know, sometimes it's that kind of thing. One other kind of experience that's, I'll say, a cousin to maybe Deja Vu, are things like recurring dreams. I remember as a child many times waking up in the morning saying, oh, I had one of those dreams last night. And in those dreams was akin to feeling like I was like in a little box, kind of like a cable car. And I was in this little box and I was going from somewhere to somewhere. And I think most of the time I was alone in the little car, but there may have been either a perception that either there was another child with me or I saw other little cars going with like a child kind of also traveling the same way. And I remember maybe during the period when I had a lot of curiosity about extraterrestrial visitors and hearing stories of, you know, they were couched in all kinds of terms, you know, like alien abductions, but other ones where there were just stories of there were children who were being schooled or trained, or they were visiting distant relatives. Instead of going up to the summer cottage to Michigan to visit Grandma and Grandpa, you're simply spirited away, or some aspect of your soul body spirited away in the middle of the night to visit your cousin Aunt Andromeda. I mean, that's about the only way I can put it.
Love it.
And so, I just have wondered, could those kind of experiences happen to me? Because I do believe that the human mind and consciousness has archetypes of meaning which emerge in a variety of ways, in stories and experiences and dreams. And I could say, I do believe there are other aspects of divine creation, other intelligences that, and in my own belief system, I believe those aspects are just another aspect of the larger me, somehow inviting me to expand my range of experience, connection, and perception. I'm rambling, but it was kind of a cousin thought.
I was just actually reminded of something, maybe because I'm sitting here holding my mala beads and I don't know what, but so from a shamanistic perspective, there's ordinary time and there's non-ordinary time. And shamans can journey, and they literally can go and be in dual realities at the same time. And perhaps that's what Deja Vu is, to some degree. We're just connecting to a space that is non-ordinary time. So we're here in this reality, but we're also in another reality at the same time. What do you think about that? I mean, as a shaman myself, I journey and I take people on journeys, and it's amazing to me what we can discover in the discussions that we have. But I hadn't really put it all together in such a way until just now, when as when we're speaking about Deja Vu, that I think maybe there is a connection there.
Yeah, to me that sounds certainly plausible. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought
spoken from a true skeptic.
Yeah,
very correct, politically correct and sensitive. You don't have to agree.
No, yeah. And I was interested in. I think you've got in your bio somewhere, maybe on Twitter, you refer to your shamanism. I don't know where I read that. And I was curious about that too. So I'm glad you referred to that perspective. As I say, I don't. I find that I actually don't need an explanation, and I'm happy sitting with the mystery, holding the mystery. And but I'm always curious to see how other people hold these phenomena. Because they do get people talking, and I'm always interested, to hear other people's experiences and how they see it. For me, I don't need a definition of my own experiences. I don't need it to be defined or contained in a particular context at all. I have a faith, I suppose. My faith is that we are, spiritual beings living a human journey, and whatever happens contains much all of that spiritual dimension, and there'll be times that I actually don't understand it, and that's okay for me.
Yeah. I think there's some freedom in not needing to understand it.
Sure. I thought Elaine's way that she started off was a really good explanation. A time warp. It's a warping of time,
Yeah.
which is what you were saying,
Yeah.
Shirley.
Yeah.
There's actual real examples of warping of time that we can understand. You know, as we get older, you know, we're all old enough, I think, to be able to reflect and say, the years are getting quicker. Every single year it gets quicker and quicker and quicker. And it's because, you know, when you're 5 years old, 1 year is a fifth of your life. But when you're 20 years old, it's only a 20th. So, you know, it really is warping. It's not consistent and stable and static. Individually, 1 year as 1/5 of my life is a very real mathematical truth. And then when I'm 20, it's 1/20th. That's true. That is actually true. You can't really deny that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now I have a thought that just sprang in. It seems important, so I'm jumping on in. I don't remember where I read this within the last 2 or 3 weeks. It may have been from Brian Luke Seward, who's a friend and mentor of mine, and internationally known holistic stress management guy. And I think it was he that was referring to an article about the Schumann resonance. That's like the vibration of the earth, and it's changing. And there's something about that is impacting the way humans are kind of experiencing time collapse, or that everything feels like it's speeding up. And if I find that, I'll bring it back and share it in this discussion, or, you know, on Twitter or Facebook or something, because I think that does somehow tie in with what I think is a common human experience I hear people mentioning. Time seems funny. I'm experiencing it differently now than I used to a couple years ago or a decade ago. It just seems like everything is quickening.
Yeah, and then you referred to it's as we get older, but my 24-year-old daughter said not too long ago, I can't believe how fast this year is going. And last year seemed really fast too. I don't understand it. And so here's a young person talking about the speed of time. I don't think when I was that age, hey?
But that's true for all ages. I mean, you know, as I said, even a 5-year-old experiences it because we're all aging. We're all having a year that's shorter than the previous one, because that's just the nature of maths. You know, when we divide our life, that's just how it works. That the 1 year is actually getting smaller and smaller and smaller the older we get. So that starts from the day we're born. So
fractionally speaking, yeah.
Well, the older we get, we have to go to bed earlier. We need more sleep. So we really take that list.
Yeah, I think it's because, like, part of it is because we pack so much in to our years now, and our young people do as well. Like, I remember there was some years that I thought they were the longest years ever that were invented, you know? And I think there is a sense of the busier you are, the more you pack into it, it's like zoom, it's over, because you want to pack more in probably. And she is a very, very extremely active girl. So I think that there is that context as well about, you know, how fast time goes. Speaking of which, it's 1:11. It's 1:11 p.m. A wonderful time that we've gone 11 minutes over our hour. I do like to keep the blabs to an hour because everyone is busy. And it's nighttime. We're ahead of the rest of the world pretty well here in Australia. So we're already nearing our weekend.
We can tell you what happens tomorrow, actually.
Yeah.
Yes, you can.
Yeah. Speaking of deja vu and time warps, would you like us to let you in?
As I keep telling our American friends, though, there's an Australian folklore that forbids us from telling them the lotto results. So we'll tell you anything, but we're not allowed to give you the lotto results. Sorry.
So I'm going to wind it up now. And thank you so much for joining us, Cherie, and for popping in, Elaine, and Vin, of course, great. Always. So thanks. It's been wonderful to hear your perceptions and views, and I love the people in the comments. Yeah, sideline. That's fantastic. Lovely, great chat going on there, and great ideas. So anyone viewing the replay, well, it's available. It will remain via my webpage, margaretlambert.com. All replays are available there. There's a link to past shows, and the current one is there on the live streaming page. Feel free to check in with me at any time via my webpage, and everybody else has given a little intro, so maybe a final word from everyone going around the room. Vin, Deja Vu, any final tips, wisdom?
Didn't we do this blab yesterday?
That's all. Elaine.
When you give yourself permission to fall in love with whatever's happening right where you are, time will disappear.
Wow. Yeah. Fantastic. Cherie.
I want to thank you, first of all, just for inviting me and reaching out to me. We actually had never met until this blab, so I'm really grateful for this connection and this conversation. It's been really interesting. It's been very interesting. I think it's been great. We've had a lot of commenting in the stream, and I feel like it was a much bigger discussion, and just us having. So I really appreciate all the different perspectives that came in, and as far as, I think the more present we can be in each moment, the less we'll feel the loss of time. And it's not the easiest thing to do, but I just would encourage.
Yeah. Thank you. And have I been pronouncing your name correctly? Is it Cherie or Sherry?
It's Cherie. Thank you very much. You have been pronouncing it. Yes.
Okay. So farewell from me. My final words, Deja Vu. I will be here again next week. Maybe we will all be here again next week. And there have been some wonderful other aspects and concepts that have come out of this conversation, and I do love the aspect of like the other dimension and people's personal stories about their experiences of loved ones who have passed. So I'm thinking that we might be moving towards that topic for next week. Love to have you join in. And I will set the exact topic, but it will be along the lines of our experiences with our loved ones who have passed. I think that's a beautiful topic. And thank you, everyone, for your great contributions.